Back on the show, California's Attorney General Rob Bonta, the first person of Filipino descent and the second Asian American to hold that position. Before that, served in the California State Assembly. Hey, Attorney General Bonta, nice to see you. How's everything?
Hey, Dean, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be with you.
Sure, it's good to have you on. So, I was very interested that you had the trial in California, 3-day trial. Your offices spearheaded it to about Donald Trump's putting troops in the street and National Guard, but also Marines and federalizing the troops. And the trial happened. It's done. What can you share about the trial? And did I miss the decision? Because I'm looking for it everywhere.
You haven't missed the decision. We're eagerly
Okay.
awaiting the decision along with you. We are optimistic and hopeful that we'll get a decision that supports the legal arguments based on the factual record that we presented. We believe that the federal government violated the Posse Comitatus Act, the law that
Mhm.
has existed in the United States of America since the late 1800s that says the military cannot be deployed on American soil for civilian law enforcement. They were the military in Los Angeles, the 4,000 National Guards people, the 700 Marines. Many of them were engaged in civilian law enforcement, in immigration enforcement, in traffic enforcement, in perimeter support, in creating blockades and stopping the flow of cars and pedestrians. That all is civilian law enforcement and breaks and violates the Posse Comitatus Act. So we think we made a very strong case to the court. We interviewed got the trial testimony and examined witnesses from the federal government. And they kept talking about some non-existent exception in the Posse Comitatus Act that allows the federal government to, as they call it, protect federal property, personnel, and functions. And if they're doing that, they thought, wrongfully, and the law doesn't say this, they thought that they could be engaged in those functions and not be in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. So I think the judge will find for us, and it's unfortunate that our federal government is violating the law. They've done it over 39 times in 31 weeks. That's how many times we've sued them, because that's how blatantly and brazenly and consistently and frequently they've violated the law. We think we made a strong case. I'm proud of my team, and we eagerly await the court's order.
So if the trial judge rules in your favor, obviously the Trump administration is going to appeal, but this could really have, if it goes to the Supreme Court, which it might, could be really an important decision. And in fact, seminal decision dealing with Donald Trump, who now wants to send troops to other blue cities to occupy blue cities, Chicago namely, but also could be Baltimore and any other place.
Absolutely. I think it's a blueprint in many ways. I think it's a blueprint for one, how to fight and how to push back against a federal administration that is a repeat offender and lawless and law breaking, and how to hold them accountable to the laws of our country and the U.S. Constitution. It's also a blueprint for what will be allowed and what will be prohibited. And I will say that the Trump administration deployed the National Guards people and the Marines to LA, saying that there was an inability to enforce the federal laws. What Trump is saying now is that he's going to be deploying the National Guard to be engaged in the thing that the Posse Comitatus Act prohibits, to be engaged in civilian law enforcement, to fight crime. That is like precisely and exactly what the Posse Comitatus Act prohibits. And he has said the quiet part out loud and says, that's what we're going to do. He may as well have said, we're going to go violate the Posse Comitatus Act in Baltimore, in Oakland, in Chicago, because that's what their plan is. So it's a different purpose, or at least articulated purpose. I think in both cases, the deployment of the military was neither necessary nor wanted, and is illegal in all these situations. But I just wanted to point out that the difference in what he's saying he will do in the future versus what they articulated they did, why they did it in LA.
Yeah, Trump doesn't hide what he wants to do. It might not comply with the law, and it tends not to, but he doesn't care. He'll just say it. I'm chatting with Attorney General Rob Bonta of California. I wanted, earlier in the show, we played a lot of clips of Governor Newsom from yesterday's event in Sacramento, where he talked about his concerns about there might not be elections in the future if Donald Trump has his way, and the use of the military and ICE to do that. And we hear this and it deeply concerns us, but it echoes what Governor Pritzker said just on Monday. These concerns about Donald Trump using National Guard or ICE to prevent elections. As an attorney general and as Democratic attorney generals that you've worked so closely with, what can you tell us about, what will you be doing to ensure that we have elections in 2026?
Mhm. Well, first I'll say I agree with Governor Newsom and the red flag that he is waving, the concerns he's expressing. He has said, we have to wake up to the reality of the intentions of this administration. He said he has a bunch of Trump 2028 hats being sent to him, suggesting a third term for Trump is appropriate and supported by some of his MAGA base. And so he's right. uh, Governor Newsom is to flag that and be concerned about it and raise the urgency of Californians and Americans about that possibility. What are we doing? We are holding the line on the U.S. Constitution and the rule of law and making sure that we have something that should not be a lot to ask, that the President of the United States of America follow the law and comply with the Constitution. And each and every time he fails to do so, we sue him and we take him to court. He breaks the law, we sue. He doesn't break the law, we don't sue. It's simple. And Stephen Miller is whining and complaining about all the court orders that are against the Trump administration, how it gets in the way of their agenda. And I have a pro tip for him, which is you won't get court orders against you if you don't break the law. So follow the law. It's really very, very simple. Our North Star is the rule of law. If all we have is a political grievance or an ideological or policy difference, we can't go to court and we won't go to court. The courts will throw us out. But if we have,
Hmm.
based on the facts and the law, we bring the receipts that the Trump administration has broken the law, we sue. And when we have sought an order, an emergency order, and the court has ruled, we have won over 90% of the time. 19 of
Wow.
21 times we've prevailed. So we're bringing cases where Trump has violated the law, and we're prevailing in those cases.
And I saw that you were co-leading a coalition of 23 Democratic AGs suing the Trump administration about the freezing of Department of Education funds right before the school year.
Yeah.
And you were successful that a deal has been reached where you're getting the money back, which should get more press coverage. Fine, I know it got some press, but it deserves a lot more press. Can you share a little bit about this?
Absolutely. I mean, this was a complete victory. Trump broke the
Hmm.
law. We sued. We won. End of story. No appeals. This isn't going to any appellate court. It's not going to the U.S. Supreme Court seeking a reversal. The Trump administration tried to withhold $7 billion, nearly $7 billion nationally, and nearly $1 billion in California in critical public school funding that supports children and parents and teachers in our public schools, that helps children learn and helps students learn English and helps with adult education as well, after school programs and summer programs. And they said as the school year was approaching in the late summer, we're not going to send the money. And of
Right.
course, that was of great concern to school districts and parents and students. And so we sued immediately to make sure that the money that was congressionally appropriated, that was owed to California and to the other states across the nation, that it flowed and that it supported the kids and supported public schools. And we earlier had a preliminary win when they sent the first tranche of funding, which is 25% of the total funding that was due by July 1st. They sent it late, but they sent it. And then they
Hmm.
ultimately agreed to send all of the funding. So we brought the suit.
Wow.
They backed down. We have an enforceable stipulation that we can take to court if they end up backing out on their promise. But we believe that they're going to send the money. They've sent the first tranche of money, and they're required under the stipulation, and that's filed with the court to send the rest. So it's a complete victory. And some of the other orders, as I mentioned, were emergency orders. They're restraining orders that are
Hmm.
that are temporary, or preliminary injunctions, which as the litigation continues. So they're not the final order ending the case. This is a final order ending the case. It's the first one of the ones that we brought against Trump, and we won. And it's not just a partial win or a kind of win. It is a complete and utter victory. We're grateful for it. We're proud of it, and there's more to come.
And that's great to hear. And again, I wish that's something they got more coverage. It deserves it to show that we're fighting back, Democrats, especially the AGs. I have Keith Ellison on every month. He's my longtime friend. And we talk about the efforts of everyone and what everyone's working on. This is
Great.
important stuff. So, I had on Assemblyman Matt Haney, I think that's how you pronounce it,
Yep,
recently
Haney.
talking about the redistricting. And I know Governor Newsom is committed to it. Can you just share now logistically what's going to happen in California now that Texas has signed into law their redistricting effort to steal 5 Democratic seats to try to rig the election? So what's happening now in California?
Absolutely. So just to be clear about what happened here, I know you know this, but it bears repeating. Trump started
Sure.
this when he reached out to Governor Abbott and said, find me 5 new districts that you can turn Republican. Just like he called the Secretary of State in Georgia after the 2020 election, that he lost, saying, find me 11,000 votes. So the loss that I suffered in Georgia can be changed and overturned. He's trying to rig the system. He's trying to abuse his power. He's trying to change the outcome of an election. And he knows what's going to happen in the midterms. He's going to lose. And so he's trying to manipulate and rig the process so that he doesn't. And Gavin Newsom, our fearless governor, has punched them back in the nose and said, Trump started this, Texas started this, Governor Abbott started this, the Republicans started this. I'm going to end it, and I'm going to block it, and I'm going to neutralize it and not allow you to get this unfair advantage to take away the voice of the people, to undermine the democratic process, to hurt our democratic institutions. So only because you're doing it, we're going to add 5 seats and neutralize this advantage that is unfair and abusive that you're trying to get. And I support that. I support what Gavin Newsom has done. I support what the legislature has done. And it's different than what Texas has done. Texas went
Yeah.
to a back room with just the Republicans in the legislature and wrote maps that gave them 5 new seats and appeared and said, these are the new seats. Here, the action was only taken because Texas acted. It was meant to blunt and neutralize their action. And this goes to the people. The people can decide. The maps
Right.
are transparent and open. People can look at them for the next weeks and months as they decide how they want to cast their vote. This is the rawest, purest form of direct democracy, when this is up to the people to see what they want to do. There will be opposition and there will be proponents. And so what happens next is the title and summary is going to be placed on the ballot and in November, and the voters will decide. The votes in the legislature through multiple vehicles have put this on the ballot. So now the next step is for the people
That's
to
great.
vote in November.
And it's a simple +1 vote wins. It doesn't have to be like 55 or 60%, like when they try to amend constitutions in other states.
Correct.
Is that the way it would
50%
go?
plus one of the people who vote in the
To
election in
vote. All
November
right.
determine it.
That's good. We need to do this. And I love that you said Governor Newsom punched Trump in the nose. I've been writing a series of articles for my Substack this entire second term, celebrating Democrats who have punched Trump in the face. I call it punching Trump in the face, and punches in air quotes, of course. But it's the idea of people who knock Trump off his game. We show people we're going to fight. We're not going to sit back, and that we get some press by doing the right things. And I've amplified Governor Newsom many times in that series of articles on there. Governor Pritzker as well. There's been some good fighters from your state and some good Democrats. We need more of them.
Great. 100%.
Another thing I want to touch. I'm sorry. Another thing I want to touch on was the horrific shooting in Minnesota. Left 2 children dead, 17 people injured. Heartbreaking stuff. Can you share why we need a federal approach to gun laws? Because you can have strict gun laws in a state, but the neighboring state might not. For example, Chicago is inundated by guns that come from Indiana. California has strict laws, but other states might not. Why do we need federal laws to ensure, or at least make it harder for people who should never have a gun? Even the people on the right would agree with us. A lot of people should not have access to guns. How do we make it harder for those people to get their hands on a gun?
We need a uniform approach in the United States of America. We can't continue with this patchwork that you've just described, where each state has a different set of rules, because we are United States of America. Of course, there's appropriately free movement between the states. And what Nevada and Arizona and other neighboring states do affects California, even though we have some of the strongest common sense gun safety laws in the nation. Guns can be brought over the border into our state and get into the hands of people who shouldn't have them, who can't handle the gun safely or act responsibly, and hurt other people. So we need some basic uniform approaches nationally, and the people of this country support that. It's the Congress that has not shown the courage and the ability to reflect the will of the people on this. Common sense gun laws like assault weapons bans are supported overwhelmingly by the American people. California is a blueprint for what every other state and the federal government can do. Bans on large capacity magazines, cooling off periods, universal background checks, violence interruption programs, gun violence restraining orders, red flag laws. The list goes on. They are proven. They are undeniably effective. The evidence shows it. They will keep people safe. They will stop preventable loss of life from gun violence. And so um, uh, there's nothing that's unknown. These are
Right.
all known quantities and known approaches. They just need leaders who have the courage to implement them. And so the federal government should reflect what California is doing. If it did, there'd be 160,000 people alive and with us today who have died, unfortunately, of gun violence over the last 10 years, if California's laws were the laws of the entire United States of America.
That's interesting that you've quantified it. I think that's great. And they are effective. And there's no doubt there's data that backs it up, from waiting periods to buy a gun to red flag laws to closing loopholes. Last thing, and I'm chatting with Attorney General of California, Rob Bonta. Recently, you spoke at Sacramento's Asian Pacific American Advocates reception there. And I know from what I saw that you spoke about concerns of the immigrant community, which is from the sea to shining sea. We have grave concerns here as
Yeah.
well in New York with the immigrant community, and a lot of people in my community who are, Arab American or Muslim American. It impacts us a great deal. What can you share in the last minute and a half we have here about what the people, the immigrants there told you? And what are you hearing from immigrants and community in your state about their concerns?
There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of trauma. Immigrant communities feel under attack, um, unseen and unvalued, targeted and scapegoated, and they feel under full frontal assault. And the ICE raids and the xenophobic and racist and targeting rhetoric all supports those perspectives. And it is exactly the opposite of what immigrants are and what they mean to California and to the United States of America. Immigrants are such a critical part of who we are, who we've become, and who we will be. I was born in another country. My mom is an immigrant from the Philippines. They brought me here when I was 2 months old because they wanted me to have freedom and democracy, not live under the rule of a dictator that ended free and fair elections in the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos. And they
Right.
believed that I could pursue and achieve my California dream here. That story has been told a million times, millions of times, from people across the world, across the globe, coming to America, a beacon of light and hope for immigrants who work hard and contribute and add to the richness and the strength of our nation, of our culture, of our economy. And Trump is attacking all that. And so, and we're going to push back. Immigrants have rights. We support our immigrant community. We have the biggest immigrant community in the nation here in California, proudly so. We've learned to live and thrive with diversity, immigrants and their contributions being such a critical part of that. We become the fourth largest economy in the world, in no small
And
part because of our immigrant contributions, and we will continue to support and uplift our immigrants.
it's great stuff. And my dad was an immigrant. My grandparents are immigrant. My fiance is an immigrant. This is part of who we are. Thank you, AG Bonta. I have to let you go. We're going to hard break in a second. Thanks so much for being on. I look forward to chatting with you in the future. Congratulations on the big win on that case.
Thank you, Dean. Honored to be with you.